Thanks, Last Count Corla. Yeah, just to return to the example that I gave earlier on, because it underlines the point that we made at committee in relation to the CRSS scheme, but it sort of magnifies the point that we were making, namely that the various COVID-related income supports that have been made available, and I acknowledge that many of those are important interventions to support people's income who have been very significantly impacted, their income and being able to work at all or being able to earn a sort of viable income, gaining supports, but that very significant groups of people have been left out. The taxi drivers have been left out of this. And it's just not fair, because their premises is in effect their car. But just like a premises, you've got to pay insurance on it, you've got to keep it maintained, you've got to pay for fuel to drive around in it, to look for work. These are costs of work for a taxi driver. And for a certain size of business that happen to have a premises, you've said, we're going to cover those costs, or we're going to contribute to cover those costs, because we know either you can't work at the moment because of our restrictions, or your ability to generate income is so significantly impacted by the restrictions that we're going to help you cover those ongoing costs. But you then just exclude a whole cohort of people who have those costs too, but they just don't have a premises. It's not fair, Minister. I don't know how anybody could say with a straight face, it's fair. And I'll tell you, the percentage of income that taxi drivers are down is very considerably more than many of the recipients of this scheme have seen their revenues hit. Many of the taxi drivers are simply not going back on the ranks because their work isn't there. They haven't gone back because it's just not there. And they know if they all went back to work, there would be you'd be lucky to get one job a week. That'll maybe improve a little bit over the next few weeks. But you go down to that rank over the last 6 or 7 weeks on Stephen's Green or any other rank, and you see them sitting there, and it's depressing to look at them for hours waiting for a fare. Then they get the fare, and they're back in the rank for another 2 hours. They're literally jumping for joy if they get one fare. But often the actual cost of going out to work on that day will be greater than the income they're going to get. So in every other sense, they tick the boxes for the CRSS, but they're excluded because they don't have a premises. It's not fair. But another group are the musicians and people whose jobs are related to the music industry, like sound engineers, light engineers and so on, who may not have a premises, but who will have to travel for their work, carry costs of doing their work, doing recordings, studios, having to go into studios and so on to do recordings in order to sustain their art. They carry those costs, but they're excluded. And then they have the insult of applying for an award from the Department of Arts, and 87% of them are told no. Just imagine how demoralising and insulting that is for these talented people. And then they can't get the CRSS either. Right? It's just not fair, Minister. And we've said it to you repeatedly, and I'm genuinely appealing, because I know you think about these things, Minister. So think about what we're saying here. There is a simply unjust exclusion of a number of categories who have been worst hit by the COVID restrictions that the government have imposed, who are being unfairly excluded, whereas others, who in some cases have been less harshly hit, do get these things. People who are actually more able to absorb the hit, because they might have made more money in the past, are getting them. But the people who really are in the most difficult position are being excluded. I don't think you can justify it. I really don't. And please don't come back and say they get the PUP, which has been cut, and which is just not enough to cover, because these were people who were able to earn a half-decent income and could pay their costs and so on, who will have mortgages, who will have car repayments that they need to make, and they cannot do it on the PUP. So they are clocking up debt all of the time as a result of the pandemic. That is a complete abandonment of the all in and together principle at the most basic level, not to recognise that these people are in trouble and they need additional support. Targeted, additional, justified, legitimate support. So I really think you need to look at this, Minister. Our amendment, which only is for a review to look at it, is a minimal thing, but to be honest, what I really want is not so much a review as for the government just to acknowledge that it is unfair they've been left out, and to do something, and do something urgently about it. Because I tell you, it's very, very demoralising for these people. Decent people, people who want to work. They don't want to be dependent on the state. And they are put in this position through no fault of their own whatsoever, and they need a hand now. So that's the appeal, Minister, and I really hope you will respond to it.